After finishing season 4 of Invincible, one thing stood out to me. Thragg is one of the best written villains of all time. I want to start out by being completely honest. Like many fans of Invincible, I didn't just stop when a season would end. I looked into the comics and spoiled some future seasons for myself. And what I found was an absolute badass named Thragg that captures your attention immediately. So when he finally came into the show, I was worried we wouldn't see the kind of aura he possessed in the comics. When he first appeared in episode 6, the fan reception was mixed. His voice didn't have that booming, deep-chested authority everyone envisioned, and his design, it didn't immediately scream superior. I even saw some people online saying he looked like this character from a Mario game, but more than the look, it was his lack of action. He sat on a throne, watched his flagship get torn apart, and instead of murdering everyone in sight, he ordered a retreat. And for a character hyped up as the main boss of the Viltrumite Empire, it felt passive. But looking back, this was a brilliant narrative trap. The showrunners wanted us to underestimate him, just like Mark and Oliver did. They wanted us to think he was just another bureaucrat in a cape, until episode 7 systematically dismantled that delusion. In episode 7, the scale of the show changes. We see the gap between strong and untouchable. While the Viltrumite war is raging and everyone is fighting for their lives, Thragg is a statue. There's a moment that needs to be studied. You see, Space Racer fires a blast from his Infinity Ray, a weapon that erases matter at light speed, and it streaks right past Thragg, inches away from his face. Think about the animation here. He doesn't even flinch. Later, we see Thragg move so fast he's practically teleporting. This tells us one of two things. Either his reflexes are so fast that he knew the trajectory of the beam down to the millimeter, or he simply didn't care if it hit him. This is the stoic villain trope perfected. He doesn't intervene because he doesn't see a war. He sees a messy cleanup job that is beneath his dignity. That is, until he sees Oliver. To Thragg, Oliver isn't just an enemy combatant. He's a biological insult. Because Oliver is half Thraxan, Thragg sees him as a lesser being. But because he carries Viltrumite blood, Thragg views his existence as a discretion of the Empire's purity. The way he dispatches Oliver isn't a fight. It's a dismissal. He rips him in half with the same effort you'd use to open a letter. This leads to the moment that defines the season, Mark's rage. By this point, Mark is a beast. He survived Omni-Man, he's killed Conquest twice, and he's finally coming into his own as a heavy hitter. We, the audience, are conditioned to expect the Shonen Jump moment where the hero's anger gives him the edge. Mark throws a punch with every ounce of Viltrumite DNA in his body. Thragg doesn't block, he doesn't slip the punch like a boxer, he leans into the punch face first. The impact does nothing. Thragg doesn't even move an inch. Instead, he utters 3 words that will echo in Mark's mind forever. I'm not impressed. This is the ultimate psychological warfare. He doesn't call Mark weak. He doesn't call him a child. He evaluates him like a disappointed teacher. This moment shifts the show from an action series to a survival horror, where you realize the heroes aren't coming out of this on top. What happened next was the fulfillment of Nolan's redemption arc, where he destroys his home planet with Mark, Thetis, and Space Racer, which was a brilliant scene in its own right. It was epic, but like Cecil said, it was just kicking a hornet's nest, because now the Viltrumites lost everything, and Thragg is pissed. And here's where we get a feat of Thragg's power, another moment to be studied. He flies toward Thetis, who he once warned the other Viltrumites about, and rips his head clean off. But if you slow this clip down, you can see Mark and Nolan completely still. Thragg is moving so fast they can't even react. And for Thetis, he just barely processes what's coming, and all he has time to do is pull his head back inches. And we can't forget how he charges up a punch so fast he created a vacuum strong enough to pull Nolan in, and punches him so hard he launches into space faster than a rocket ship. And just by the look on Nolan's face, he has never seen that kind of strength before, and he's one of the strongest Viltrumites alive. And this is where we finally realize Thragg wasn't hiding in episode 6, he was calculating. A well-written villain has a why, and Thragg's why is the preservation of his species at any cost. He believes his race was destined to rule because they are the pinnacle of evolution. What makes this adaptation of Thragg so compelling is his cold logic. He is willing to let Mark and Nolan live, even after they destroyed his home planet, because he realizes the Viltrumite population is in a state of collapse. He puts aside his personal hatred for the sake of the Empire. He values strength above all else, which is why he respected Mark for killing Conquest. He wanted to see for himself just how strong a half Viltrumite, half human really is. And since Mark is so young, I wonder if this made Thragg realize the potential and if this was the first time he saw an answer to his ongoing problem. The finale of season 4 gives us the ultimate checkmate. Mark's worst fears don't manifest in the way he thinks. The Viltrumite nuclear bomb doesn't go off the way it did in previous seasons. Thragg doesn't act through violence. He gives him an ultimatum. He realizes human DNA is the answer he's been looking for, the answer that will save the Viltrumite race from extinction. And as Mark is standing there, helplessly thinking through what to do, what to say, I get taken back to earlier in the series when Anissa first comes to Earth and tells Mark to get Earth ready for the Viltrum Empire. Cecil is in his ear and he tells him to stand down, but Mark in this moment thinks he can take her head on and doesn't stand down. It's like they've been setting us up for this, because finally Mark knows for the first time in his life that there's no good outcome if he says no. And this also gives us a huge glimpse into Thragg's mind, as he's willing to sacrifice the Empire in name if it means the race survives in blood. By settling on Earth, he turns the hero's home into a hostage. He bets on the fact that if Viltrumites interbreed with humans, the species survives. This truce is perhaps his most villainous act, as it forces Mark to live in a state of permanent anxious peace, proving that Thragg's mind is just as dangerous as his power. He wins by refusing to lose, bending his pride to ensure that the Viltrumite legacy and his own shadow never leaves the galaxy. To understand Thragg, you have to look at what he lost. Under his rule, the population went from billions to around 50, and he was never destined for the throne. He got there because his mentor, Argall, was murdered. And Thragg even says it himself, he's only in charge until they find an heir. But he wasn't just Argall's right-hand man, he was a disciple. To Thragg, Argall was a father figure and a god. He spent centuries holding on to Argall's legacy, honoring him with statues, and even keeping the king's skull as a grim reminder of his duty. This reveals a level of tragic loyalty. Thragg isn't just a tyrant, he is a grieving son trying to fulfill a dead man's dream. This is what separates him from someone like Conquest. Conquest was a phenomenal antagonist, a rabid dog who lived for treating lesser beings like chew toys. But even a monster like Conquest, the man who feared nothing, obeyed Thragg without question. Thragg doesn't need to bark orders or throw tantrums. He possesses a natural, terrifying authority that makes even the most chaotic Viltrumites fall in line. Thragg isn't the perfect villain because of his strength in combat alone. His perfection as a villain lies at the crossroads of his absolute power and a deeply entrenched, albeit horrifying, moral code. Thragg is the ultimate nationalist, a servant to a cause. He is the perfect villain because he doesn't see himself as an individual. He sees himself as a living embodiment of his race's destiny. In any other story, a traitor like Nolan would be executed immediately to maintain order. However, Thragg's love for his people and his recognition of their dwindling numbers overrides his desire for vengeance. By keeping Mark and Nolan alive, he prioritizes the genetic survival of the Viltrumites over personal pride. This introduces a complex layer to his villainy. He is a monster who values life, provided that life is a strong Viltrumite, which only makes his mercy all the more chilling. Thragg succeeds as an antagonist because he is a rational monster. He provides a physical challenge that Mark cannot overcome, and a philosophical challenge that Mark cannot fully refute. He is the guardian of a dying flame, willing to burn the rest of the universe to keep it lit. I hope you enjoyed my deep dive into the brilliance behind Thragg and what makes him such a good villain. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and let me know your thoughts in the comments, as well as any other character you'd want me to analyze, and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching.